Hello and welcome to Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. My name is Ben and with me is my soda pop.
Yeah. So I'm Jim, and this week Ben's choice was that we watch K-pop Demon Hunters. So
The international phenomena. Let me start off with a synopsis and some facts, because I picked the movie this week, so it is my job. K-pop Demon Hunters follows Rumi, Mira, and Zoe, three members of the hugely successful K-pop group Huntrix, who secretly live double lives as demon hunters protecting the world. As they prepare for their biggest concert yet, they discover a rival boy band is actually made up of demons, trained to steal the souls of their fans. At the same time, Rumi is hiding a dangerous secret about her own connection to demons, a truth that could destroy her friendship and everything the group has worked for.
I feel the chat GPT in that one.
Yeah, I reworded some of it, but I didn't know how to word it otherwise, so I used the old chat GPT.
Look,
released in 2000... Oh, sorry, go.
I was just going to say, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying I heard it,
Released 2025, directed by Maggie Kang and Chris Applehans. Screenplay by Danya Jimenez, Hannah McMeechan, Maggie Kang and Chris Applehans. Story by Maggie Kang, starring Arden Cho, An Hyo Sop, Mei Hyung, Ji Yun Yu, Ji Jin Kim, Ken Yong, and Lee Byun Hun. Music by Marcelo Zavas. Runtime of 95 minutes. A budget of about 100 million. Box office is tricky with this one. So I've got a box office of 18 million domestic and an additional 319,000 in South Korea. But that's actually based on the sing-along version of the release, because this is a Netflix production. So Netflix released a sing-along version in cinemas, which made it eligible for a whole bunch of awards and stuff, but also that's the box office we have. So, K-pop Demon Hunters. Jim, you were not excited for this one. I was excited for this one, but maybe not for the reasons people thought. But then after watching it again, I realized I do really kind of enjoy this film for what it is. Jim, how did you feel after watching it through your lack of excitement to start with?
Yeah, I guess I had a lot of thoughts. This is one of those movies where you look at it and there's some movies that are so big and so popular and so loved that it's a bit like, are you even allowed to criticize it?
Yeah.
This one.
And I will say there is things to criticize in this film. There is things to discuss.
That's sort of where I came out on this one. I was like, look, I didn't dislike, the movie, I guess. I had some philosophical and, dare I say, theological issues with the film. Which is a pretty unusual thing to sort of raise on our podcast. But first of all, if we talk about the movie itself, if we take my philosophical, my theological stuff and we put it to the side, which is hard to do, but possible, and we look at the actual movie, is this a good movie? Yes, I think it is. So I think that it's funny. I think that the characters are, for the most part, quite likable. And I think that the songs, are epic. The sequences are very well done. All of the technical and, most of the storytelling stuff, I'd sort of say objectively, like this is probably a quote unquote good movie. So then what's your problem, Jim? I had two problems, and they're kind of intertwined, but they also are separate criticisms. So the first one is a story issue. I like movies that have really clear rules and really clear lore, Lore, to them. This movie has very unclear rules and it has very unclear lore. And that actually creates issues the deeper you get into the narrative. Like it's a lot like a fantasy system or a science fiction system where if you don't know what the rules are, anything is possible. And things that you think were established as being not possible, are then sometimes in the next scene walked back, reversed, and changed and whatnot. The movie operates on a system of what you'd call uh, emotional climaxes
Mm.
rather than perhaps always logical or always coherent climaxes. You ride the waves of the emotion to get to the thematic and symbolic ending of the film. And for most audiences, it would seem that is enough. For me, it creates some frustration.
And the biggest and easily most explainable part of this is the character of Rumi. She is all parts of what you've just described.
Yeah.
So she is the emotional climaxes throughout this movie. She is the turmoil, but she's also the unexplained logic. So you mentioned the lore, Lore, and look, we are both preconditioned based on the fandoms we love to really love that stuff. We like to know the nitty gritty of how a universe works because there's more enjoyment, there's more depth, there's more flavor for us in that. And when you find out that, oh, her dad was a demon and she's half demon, and that's all you get. That's all the consequence you get until later on. And then you just get that, well, it doesn't matter. It's just what's in your heart, which is a lovely message. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter who you were born as. It's what you grow up to be. But in a world where they've set these kind of magical boundaries and rules, we feel like what it feels like is you're watching a much smaller part of an expanded universe that you have no future context over. Like you look at it and you go, well, I don't know where these people came from. I don't know about the past battles. I don't know about the battles that are happening elsewhere. I don't know about the conflicts. I don't know about, all hunters good or all these things. Like, so you get a little bit lost and you just kind of have to go, all right, I'm just going to have to enjoy what's in front of me. And what's enjoyable in front of me is the action, is the music, is the character interactions and the animation. But you're right, the lore is muddy. And I think that comes from, we can talk about it later, how this project was developed. Because this project was developed very singularly and clearly in mind with, and I think very honorably with, the people who created this really wanted to see representation of their culture on screen, right? That was their first and foremost goal. The K-pop stuff was even added after they came up with kind of the story of the Huntrix and the demons and all that sort of stuff to make it even more Korean. So yeah, you kind of get this kind of aspect of they're tacking on lore as they go without going back and shoring up the foundations of that.
Yeah, and like you say, Rumi creates all of these issues in the narrative, through her different functions. So, and the first and foremost is in any kind of fantasy or sci-fi system, you really need to have very clear definitions of what something is. In this particular world, what is a demon? That is really the question, because at the start, it's set up as, well, demons are soulless monsters. Okay, that's a very sort of global reading of the word demon. Okay, and it matches there. And then it's sort of said, okay, Rumi's half demon. As soon as you do that, you go, wait, stop. Okay, are you saying demons are soulless monsters, or are you saying demons are a race? Okay, because that's two very different things. Because if they're a race, right, who are just oppressed or just, downtrodden or whatever, then these three girls are killing them, all of them, a lot, right, throughout the start of the movie, which instantly creates issues, right? Now, if they're not a race, if they are actually soulless monsters, then how is Rumi half of one, and how does that work? And this then gets further complicated by Jinu, who is the boy who is her love interest, who is also a demon. So because he seems good somehow at the outset, or at least conflicted, which again, as soon as you introduce conflict, and internal struggle, you are then now saying it's not a soulless being, right? And you might sort of think, oh, you're reading too much into this, Jim. This is a kid's film. But I'm a bit like, things have to make sense in
That's
order
what's on the screen too.
That's right. Like things have to make sense before you can actually be satisfied with the outcome. Because if the rules continue to shift and change, then nothing means anything. And
What
that's one of the bigger issues that I had with the movie, because I was sort of like, I can't. Demon means whatever we want it to mean in any certain scene. In some scenes, it means that it's a soulless monster that we need to kill. In other scenes, it's a metaphor for perhaps, being true to oneself. And then in other scenes, it's a metaphor for oppression of an entire race of people. And it just changes from moment to moment.
I had similar questions watching the movie, and I knew you would have similar questions too, because, hey, we've grown up together. We know each other. So I'm much more familiar with folklore when it comes to Japanese folklore. This is Korean. And the equivalent in Japanese is the yokai, right? And I looked up a bit of this in Korean folklore as well. So the word demon is obviously, it's a Western representation of their belief system or their idea. So Koreans and Japanese believe in a collection of different malevolent spirits. They're not all the same thing, but the umbrella term that has been provided to them in this context and in others is demon, right? So they could be anything from a spirit that trips you when you go down the stairs to a fully corporeal being that tries to take your soul. So it's almost like it's not the same thing, I know, but just as an easy kind of allegory is like saying, dogs. But all dogs aren't the same. There are big dogs, little dogs, small dogs, dogs that are good at swimming, all those sort of things, right? Dogs that look completely different from each other. So that's how I kind of read that as, and that's not explained in the film, do not get me wrong, but it is their interpretation of the Korean mythology that they're trying to represent.
And I would say a far more elegant version of this would be what they do in the Last Airbender TV show, the original animated one, where they say the spirit world, okay? Yeah. And that is therefore this collection, right?
Of different possible things.
Of different possible things. It's a far more nuanced and instantly recognizable version of what you just described. But again, this movie doesn't do that.
No.
This movie actually begins by establishing demon as demon. And interestingly, it was actually really the Western interpretation of demon. It is a horrific monster that is soulless and is to be killed, which then, of course, if that is your baseline definition, nothing but problems ensue when you try and do all this other stuff on top of it, which, I guess that then brings me to, I'm going to say it's two things together, and both of them are quite unique to me. We usually talk about criticism generally, but I'm like, I know these are unique to me. So it's not like this is like not necessarily like a mainstream criticism, but I had two recurring thoughts throughout the film. The first was about age demographic, who this film is for. And the second was straight up theological, which of course is to do with religion. So let's talk about, and they both kind of go together, So let's talk about the age of this film. I'm just going to ask you, what age do you think this film is for and suitable for?
I think what this is aimed at is children starting 10, 11, 12 to infinity, because that is what it's hit. But I think probably what it's aimed for is pre-teen to late teen is probably its age demographic, particularly female. And I believe that's purely based on the K-pop part of this. It also indirectly kind of taps into probably a little bit of 90s nostalgia with anyone who watched like Buffy and things like that. But that demographic was supposed to be older. So that would be my thought. Pre-teen to late teen is what they're aiming at. That's based on where it's released and kind of, everything else that's in the film. Do I think that's appropriate for a younger audience? Me and you have very differing ideas and beliefs on, even outside of the theological thing, what's appropriate for different age groups. I am also, spoilers, not a dad. I do not have children. I have nephews and I have nieces and I have friends' children. So I see how those things are done. I would, from the age of about 10, gauge that on the child. How do I think that child is, and what is their maturity, and what conversations have we had previously, and things like that. Anyone past the age of 13, I would have no problem with them watching it independently. But then again, my background is different to your background and things like that. I understand that the questions and the conversations would be different depending on that.
Well, interestingly, I think you've basically hit where I would land. And the thing is that this has skewed younger. And I don't know if it's skewed. I actually do blame a lot of the marketing on this because, I just think it was kind of shameless. But like this movie is sort of skewed down to kids as young as 6. And when I look at the imagery in the movie, the killing, the swords, the Soldier Boys do a climactic dance that is quite demonic in terms of its actual visuals.
It is evil.
And it's evil and scary, and do you know what I mean? Like quite monstrous. And I just kept going, man, this is skewed down as young as 6. There's no way I would let a 6-year-old watch this movie, So yeah, I was sort of thinking the same as you. I think even 10 for me would be a bit young, but
yeah,
I felt like they were sort of mainly going at that sort of 13 to 16 kind of age range there. So I was a little bit sort of like, is this just something that skewed young? Is it just something that caught on? Or was it maybe more insidiously, deliberately designed to skew younger with the bright colors and whatnot to try and capture as many people as possible? And I don't really have an answer to that.
I think
the cynic,
I
the
think
cynic
it's a
in me,
combo.
the cynic in me says, I reckon the creators of the product probably didn't mean it to skew that young. But then I think as soon as the marketing team saw what they had and that saw it catching on, they maybe made some choices that were ethically not so good to skew that younger than it should have been.
A marketing team sees that movie, hears that music, knows the bangers of songs that they have, and they go, well, we can give this to everybody. We can make so much money from this, which they have done, and very successfully done. So yeah, it is, like it's existed since we were kids, right? And it's more prevalent now because of streaming. But the idea that a lot of adults think cartoon, that's okay for kids, still exists, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that this isn't okay for kids or your kids or anything like that. But what it means is you shouldn't blindly accept content as okay for every situation based on the style of what it is, right? So, I mean, yes, we have clearly defined adult cartoons, South Park, Family Guy, things like that, right? They're clearly that. They're not really marketed to kids, but kids still get attracted to them because cartoon means kid, right? This can happen in cinema. This can happen in film. This happened in a non-animated film that we've done, which was Bridge to Terabithia. The way something can be marketed, you have to be a responsible consumer in everything, especially in this day and age. You have to be responsible, especially if you're recommending or to someone else or letting your children watch it. You either have to have consumed it first and gone, yep, this is okay, or no, we need to wait. And K-pop Demon Hunters rides that line, I think, probably for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people, unlike you or myself because of this podcast, haven't thought about it and just gone, cartoon, girl power, put it on for kids.
Yeah. It's almost like, it's like Powerpuff Girls. I'm like, no, it's quite different, actually.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's sort of, I'll just touch briefly on then my other thing, which is even more sort of personal, which is if you are, say, of a particular religion, like take in this case Christianity for myself.
And I'm going to throw it out there. It wouldn't just be Christianity.
No, it wouldn't either. And that was what sort of struck me. It wouldn't just be Christianity, but, for the sake of my own experience, let's say Christianity, when your kids, are younger than that 13 age, you're still very much trying to teach them your beliefs and your sort of family religion, right? And in our case, relationship with God and reading the Bible and looking at that sort of thing. And a product like this, introduced at that very early stage, is something that I think would actually really set you back in that sort of way, because it would be, if that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to instill things and teach things, then this kind of thing, because of the things we discussed before, because it's ill definition of the word demon, whereas the Bible has a definition of the word demon as well. It's just muddying the waters before you've sort of established like the baseline that you are comfortable with in your home. And I like that analogy of Last Airbender, because it is about presentation. I wouldn't have a problem. I don't think it's, confusing or what would you say, like setting you back or having a problem to show them Last Airbender animated show, although some of the episodes are a bit too dark, but in terms of that spirit world scheme concept, like, you get it, that lore is coherent, it makes sense, it's not putting a layer onto what you're trying to teach with your own sort of family religion. Whereas I think, again, because of some of the iconography of this, where they really have taken that westernized idea of what a demon is, and then they've taken the Eastern idea of demon or spirit, and they've kind of fused them together but not explained anything and just left it out there. I think it kind of creates a bit of an issue if you are a parent who is trying to do those things. Obviously, and that's where I say, and I've said it many times, that's a completely individualized thing. If you were a completely secular parent, that would not even come into your brain, because it would just be not something that is a concern for you, So
if you're a secular parent, though, like, I still think the themes presented in the film are something that you would have to think about first. Like, there is violence, there is romance, there are things that are mature themes within this film of identity. That either you just have to be willing to have a pretty just chill conversation, like, oh yeah, sometimes people struggle with who they are or what sort of thing, or sometimes they feel lost, or hey, violence isn't the answer, this is a fictional thing. Like, you still have to be prepared and be responsible to have those conversations. Like, I have a nephew. My nephew at the moment loves Ninja Turtles. Do you know what Ninja Turtles makes you want to do? Hit people with sticks. So you have to have that conversation of, that's the Ninja Turtles. We can pretend to be Ninja Turtles, but we're not hitting people with sticks. Like, you have to have that conversation.
And interestingly, I don't even think we would be having this part of the discussion on the podcast if this movie hadn't skewed so young. Do you know what I mean? Like, if this movie hadn't skewed all the way down to 6 and 7 year olds, we would be like, well, once they're teenagers, do you know what I mean? Like, they're.
I was going to say, like, this movie, like, let's kind of not park that, but have that in the background for a bit. I was watching this movie and I'm going, this is Buffy. This is Buffy with music and 3 girls. There's an angel character. There's David, like, as well as, like, this is Buffy. And, like, which I think why a lot of people really do connect with it, because that story is kind of interesting, right? Like, and turn the bad boy or help the bad boy. And, like, I was reading about it. And so here's the deal, right? As I said earlier, the K-pop stuff was introduced later because they wanted to honor the Korean kind of modern aspect, right? This started off pretty much as 3 teenage girls fighting demons a la Buffy. Like, that was the original concept in a Korean environment, right? In a Korean kind of backdrop. Like, so, like, that was the original concept. And then they hit upon, and look, they would have looked out there and gone, look how popular K-pop is. Like, because this movie took about 7 years to make, from pitch and inception to creation. And they would have gone, well, this is so popular. And it was also a great way to ease into the conversation of this film, right? Like, saying, like, everyone's interested in K-pop right now. K-pop is a great product. Let's put this in there, right? The songs are super duper catchy. The songs are super interesting. And on a rewatch, I was really interested to note the differences in the boy band songs versus the girls songs. So the boy bands were very top level, superficial, You're My Soda Pop, like very kind of superficial, basic, manufactured, whereas the girls' Huntrix songs, they were trying to be deeper. They were talking about their emotions. They were talking about the world around them, how it affected them, and, you know, their goals and dreams and aspirations. There was like depth to it. So it was a really nice little juxtaposing and all that sort of stuff.
Well, that was also a nice story point because the boy band is a completely constructed band that is totally artificial. You know, whereas they're just trying to get fans. It's the you know, the epitome of the producer or the record label who's like, let's just sell the product. Whereas, of course, the girls are writing from the heart. You know, when they actually write their own
they have a purpose
sort of material.
But yeah, so like I wanted to touch in on like the kind of Buffy connections. As I said, I enjoyed this film, and as I said, I understand why everybody who watches this film enjoys this film. And I have a question for you. Is this film a musical?
I'd say yes, you know, because in a musical, the typical rule of a musical is that you break into song when the emotion of the moment is too much. And this film absolutely follows those rules, you know? So, and it does move into that sort of magic realism of it's like, are they actually singing, or is the singing a non-diegetic kind of ambiance to the fight scene? And the answer is it's both, right? It's both. It's everything all at once. And that is some of the nice moments of the movie, is how they do actually use music. Sometimes, yes, as a performance, but then sometimes also to speak about or to reveal what they're feeling as they do various actions. And then sometimes both, because montage is such a key aspect of many of the sequences of the film. So, and it would have been painstaking to put all of those together. You know, where in this montage are we fighting these creatures? Where are we on stage? Where are we with the girls in a private moment? You know, and how's that all going to work? So,
I was also reading a lot of the songs were written before the full knowledge of where they were going to go in the script was, right? So like a lot of the scenes and story was built around that kind of thing, which is a bit opposite to what you normally do. I can hear the "where's Daddy?"
Yeah, tells you where I'm at, you know.
I just have a couple more facts I want to mention, and I'm happy to wrap up. So this holds a couple of records. This movie. The first is it is the first feature film to feature 4 songs in the top 10 US charts at the same time. So 4 songs were in the top 10. It also, the song Golden in this movie was the first animated feature song to reach #1 on the Billboard 100 charts. So that shows how much the movie hit in this movie. The music hit in this movie. Like this was, like the music was almost more popular than the film. Like that's because like they're proper songs, right? They were written by proper K-pop artists, produced by proper K-pop producers. Like they really went all in on the songs. It also holds the record for most costume changes in an animated film by its main characters.
Yeah, right.
Which was inspired by the amount of costume changes K-pop artists do. Like it's very much part of their genre, right? Because K-pop is, you know, all music is storytelling, but they use costume and stage very much as part of that storytelling. Saja, the evil guys, the Saja boys, Saja has a dual meaning in Korean. It means lion, but it also means messenger from the afterlife. So I found that a little bit interesting as well. But yeah, look, I wanted to watch this movie because I knew it would spark some of these conversations, right?
Yeah.
I also wanted to
like when you picked it, and then we sort of got into it. I was like, I wonder if he's ready for how I'm.
I was definitely ready, definitely ready.
Was that what you thought my reaction would be? All that?
Yeah, I did. I thought it would be conflicted. I assumed it would be conflicted and nuanced, which it was. I also know you're not the sort of person to let conflict make you just shove something to the side and go, no. You have comment, right? Which is why we're friends and why we do this podcast, because we find those interesting points and we talk about them, and we might clash or rub, but that's the fun part of discussing cinema, right?
True.
So I knew that was the case. And I also wanted to do it because this is not the first, but it is the most prominent example of what new cinema is. Whether that is good or bad in your opinion, well, I mean, I'm dating it at this point, but we've got an example of classic cinema at the moment in the Odyssey out in the world, right? Like, that is what people think classic epic cinema. Well, K-pop Demon Hunters is new cinema, in my opinion. New cinema as of 2023, 24. It is released and created primarily for streaming. It is then released secondarily in cinemas. And sometimes that is done just to meet criteria for awards. I don't think that was necessarily the case in this one. I think they obviously saw a market and money for this, especially for sing-alongs. But I think it's really interesting that we stay up with this. We stay on this and we watch the evolution. Because the thing we love, cinema, is changing at a faster pace than it has ever changed before. And you can like that, or you can dislike that, or you can like parts of it and dislike parts of it. But I think it's important that we capture it in this. For the 7 people that listen and watch to us, I think it's important that we capture it, because I look at K-pop Demon Hunters as the full turn, almost, right? Like, they've realized this can work, and this can work on such a massive scale. And that would be scaring a lot of traditional cinema and making a lot of non-traditional cinema really excited. And I don't really have much more to comment on it, but that's just interesting to me.
Yeah, and I was going to say it's really also interesting to look at a product or a film that does appear to have been completely engineered for a global audience and completely engineered to capture current trends, so and current sort of cultural touch points. So and that's where, like, from a monetary perspective, there is a lot of thought that's gone into how to make this thing a moneymaker. Not necessarily from the core creatives, but from that marketing team, from those people producing the songs, and from looking at how this is going to play and what the release strategy is. Like, there is an awful lot of calculation there to try and engineer a hit. And because the quality of the product was good enough, that strategy was allowed to succeed on an absolutely unprecedented level here.
And I want to say, like, that's probably because we're almost at one of the first points in movie history where that's possible. We are so connected. Trends move so fast and overtake the world so completely for amounts of time, then get moved on to a new thing, that you can kind of create or capitalize on those moments in a way that this has done. And I think you're 100% right based on my readings as well. The creators had no concept of this. They had a story they wanted to tell. They had a culture they wanted to shine a light on, and they got really excited that they found this way to do it. And then obviously people got really excited when they saw what they created, because they realized what they could do with it as well. And I think I'll finish up by saying, hey, just like the previous movie we watched in Pride and Prejudice, this actually isn't a Ben movie. This isn't a movie I would go, oh, I've got to watch K-pop Demon Hunters. I haven't watched it yet. But it is a movie I did enjoy. I had fun with it. The songs are catchy. I've listened to them separate to the movie. And I think it is a really well-constructed film. But that doesn't take away from what we've talked about before. And I think almost that makes this movie even better cinema. If you can have conversations like this about a piece of art, in a strange way, that makes it a little bit better for me. That's more interesting to me. So, K-pop Demon Hunters gets my seal of approval. I mean, if you're above the ages of 13, as we've discussed on this podcast, go for it. Enjoy it. But, if you're a parent, for any movie, watch it first, think about it, and maybe just make decisions based on your kid and maybe with the world around you at the time.
Ben's PSA.
That's my final thoughts. Yeah,
Ben's PSA for the world
that's my
out there.
PSA.
So
Be a responsible consumer of art.
I will tell you what art we are going to consume next. But in case they're interested, why don't you tell people where they can find the rest of our art, such as it is?
If you've gotten all the way to the end of this in-depth and nuanced discussion and not realized you've been watching Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures, that is wild. But we are Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes by just looking up those words. If you want to follow us on any sort of Instagram or TikTok, you can do that at Jim underscore Ben at Instagram, and Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures on TikTok. Now, if you do get to the YouTube and you watch K-pop Demon Hunters and you're like, wow, they got really in deep and philosophical and about that one. Hey, we've watched so many other movies that we don't do that to. Go check them out. See what we think about them. I rewatched our video on The Green Knight recently and really enjoyed that. So maybe you could check that out. But that's also a bit philosophical. But anyway, check out what movies we've seen. Leave comments, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Jim, what is the next piece of art we are going to consume?
Well, look, this is not K-pop Demon Hunters, but
it would surprise me as there's only one of them.
It is also in the genre vein. I recently have been watching a couple of movies that were filmed in our backyard, and
your backyard's not very big.
No, it's not. But I meant in the local sense. So I watched 13 Lives recently, which was obviously shot on the Gold Coast, close to us, and it made me think of another movie, which is I just wanted to get into it. It was shot locally. I enjoy the idea that this is somehow supposed to be doubling for an American city while clearly also being in our backyard.
Is it Inspector Gadget?
It is not. But we are going to watch 2009's Daybreakers.
Okay. Yep.
Have you seen this movie?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
right.
I have. And spoilers, you may have shown it to me.
Yeah, probably. I haven't seen it for a while, but I thought it would be really fun to look at this one in an our backyard kind of way and just also see how it's aged. It's been a while since I've looked at this one. So
yeah.
Daybreakers, starring Ethan Hawke, written and directed by the Spearig brothers. And that's what we're going to watch next week. So we hope you can join us.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much for joining me this week, Jim. I'll see you next time.